Hey everyone, and welcome back. I bet most of you have used Airbnb before, maybe even listed a place.
Yeah, it's so popular these
For
days.
sure. But have you ever thought about all the data behind those smooth booking experiences?
It's mind-boggling the amount of stuff they have to handle.
It really is. And today, we're going to take a deep dive into how Airbnb engineers tackled a massive payment system challenge.
And we have ProductinData.com to thank for this one.
Right. They've done the awesome job of breaking down this really technical 2022 article from Airbnb's tech blog.
It's super dense, but ProductinData.com did a great job summarizing it.
So what we're going to talk about is how Airbnb went from this technical nightmare
Oh, yeah.
to this super smooth user experience.
That's a great story.
All because they figured out how to wrangle this mountain of payments data.
Exactly.
So let's imagine you're trying to get your finances in order,
Yeah.
but all the info is scattered across a dozen different places.
Oh, man, a total nightmare.
Right. Well, that's basically what Airbnb's engineers were dealing with.
I can't even imagine.
And here's the crazy part. This data mess happened after they switched to a system that was supposed to be more efficient.
How is that even possible?
Right. So how did they end up taking one step forward and two steps back?
Well, it's actually a pretty common thing in the software world. It's like this classic trade-off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you gain something, but then you create a new problem.
Makes sense.
So Airbnb was like a lot of growing tech companies, and they transitioned from what's called a monolithic architecture to a service-oriented architecture, or SOA.
SOA. So is that like when you have to pay extra for guacamole at Chipotle?
Not quite. It's a bit more technical than that.
Okay, so break it down for us.
Imagine a giant single-piece Lego structure.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
That's your monolithic architecture. It's all connected, which can be great when it's small, but it becomes a beast to manage as it grows.
Yeah, like when my kids build those giant Lego towers and then they can't even move them.
Exactly. So SOA is like breaking that giant structure into smaller, specialized Lego sets.
Okay, so you're saying each set has its own purpose and you can work on them independently.
Right, exactly. Just like having separate drawers for your socks, shirts, and pants instead of just tossing everything into one giant bin.
It definitely sounds more organized.
Yeah. SOA makes things more organized, scalable, and easier to maintain.
Okay, so that all makes sense, but I'm guessing there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
What is it?
So now you've got all this information spread out across these different services, right?
Yeah.
And when you need to bring it all together to show a user something like their transaction history,
Okay.
it can create a bottleneck.
Ah, so that's where the headache comes in.
The Airbnb engineers realized that this fragmented data situation was causing major slowdowns.
Wow.
Missing information, tons of frustration.
Sounds like a mess.
Yeah, and especially for the hosts trying to manage their earnings.
Oh, no.
It was a big problem.
I bet if I were a host with thousands of bookings, I would be going crazy trying to navigate a clunky, slow system.
Yeah, and the article specifically mentions issues with hosts viewing their earnings,
Okay.
generating tax forms, and even sending out payout notifications.
So these weren't just minor inconveniences.
No, these were core features that were being totally hampered by this fragmented data issue.
Yikes. So they kind of traded one problem for another.
It seems that way, right?
Moving to SOA
Yeah.
helped in some ways, but it created this whole new data management mess.
Yeah.
So what did they do to fix it?
So they came up with this pretty ingenious solution.
No.
They built what they called a unified payments data read layer.
Okay, unified payments data read layer.
Catchy.
Right.
Thank you.
It sounds impressive, but what does it actually do?
Think of it like a universal translator for all of that scattered payments data.
So it's bringing everything together?
Exactly. It sits on top of all those different SOA services
Okay.
and acts as a single point of access.
So instead of having to talk to a bunch of different services,
Right.
applications can just go straight to this unified layer and get everything they need in one go.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
It's like a one-stop shop for all things payments data.
I like it. And this is where I think ProductinData.com really shines.
Oh, yeah.
They explain this super complex idea in a way that anyone can understand.
For sure. They're great at making this stuff accessible.
They break it down, and you start to see how this seemingly small technical tweak can have a huge impact on the user experience.
Absolutely. And what's really cool is that this unified read layer didn't just solve the technical problem.
Oh.
It also made the user experience way better.
Okay, so how did it improve things for Airbnb users? Give me some concrete examples.
Well, remember how we talked about hosts struggling to view their transaction history?
Yeah.
That was a prime example.
Okay.
Before they had the unified read layer, that page was a nightmare.
Really?
It was slow, prone to errors and incredibly frustrating for hosts.
Especially those with tons of bookings, I imagine.
Exactly. It was a
Yeah.
real pain point.
Yeah, no one wants to be scrolling through thousands of transactions on a laggy page.
Definitely not.
So how do they fix it?
So they implemented the unified read layer,
Okay.
and they did something called data denormalization.
Data denormalization.
Yeah, it sounds a bit intimidating,
It kind of does.
but it's actually a pretty simple concept.
Okay, help me understand.
It basically means organizing the data in a way that makes it faster to retrieve.
So instead of having to piece together info from multiple places,
Right.
it's all pre-combined and ready to go.
Exactly. Think of it like having a summary report ready to go.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Instead of having to manually calculate everything every time.
Yeah, that would take forever.
Right. So by using this unified read layer and denormalizing the data,
Okay,
they were able to make the transaction history page lightning fast.
no more lag.
No more lag. And not just faster, but also way more reliable.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fewer moving parts means fewer things can break.
That makes sense.
So fewer errors and outages.
So it was a win-win for everyone.
Totally. Faster, more reliable, and a better user experience overall.
You know, it's amazing how these little details can have such a big impact.
It's true.
We often take these smooth online experiences for granted, but there's so much complex engineering going on behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about how that technology is used to solve real-world problems.
I love that. Speaking of real-world problems, did this unified read layer only benefit hosts, or did it have a wider impact?
It actually ended up benefiting guests as well.
Oh, tell me more.
This actually came out of one of Airbnb's famous hackathons.
Cool.
So a group of engineers got together
Okay.
and decided to tackle the problem of guests not having a comprehensive view of their payment history.
Yeah, that's always bugged me.
Right, it's like you might have multiple bookings, refunds, travel credits,
Exactly.
but there's no easy way to see all of that in one place.
So annoying.
So this hackathon team, they took advantage of the newly created unified read layer to build what they called the guest payment history page.
That's awesome.
Guests loved it.
I bet they did. Everyone wants that kind of transparency and control over their payment.
Absolutely. But what's really interesting is that this new feature didn't just improve the guest experience.
There's more.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all ears.
It actually saved Airbnb a ton of money.
Okay, now I have to hear this story. How did a simple payment history page save them money?
It all comes down to customer support.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
Before the guest payment history page, guests often had to contact Airbnb's support team.
Right, to clarify payment details or track down refunds.
Exactly. All of those support tickets add up.
For sure.
But with the new guest payment history page, guests could find the info they needed themselves.
No more calling customer support,
Exactly. And this led to a significant reduction in support tickets.
which saved them a ton of time and money.
Right. It's amazing how a seemingly simple feature can have such a huge ripple effect.
It's like they managed to solve a technical problem, improve the user experience, and
Yeah.
save money all at the same time.
The ultimate trifecta.
It really is. It's a great lesson for anyone building products, really.
Yeah, thinking about the user experience and the bottom line.
Totally. And, you know, this whole story got me thinking, if Airbnb can solve this crazy complex data challenge,
Mm-hmm.
what other industries could benefit from a similar approach?
That's a great question. I mean, think about all the online services we use every day that are just clunky and slow
Yeah.
or confusing. Like, could a unified read layer be the key to, like, a better user experience in healthcare or finance?
It's a fascinating thought. Imagine if online banking or even government websites were as smooth and intuitive as Airbnb.
Right. It would be a game changer.
I know. And maybe some of our listeners out there are already working on the next unified read layer for their industry.
That would be awesome. We'd like to hear about it if you are.
But even if you're not building the next big tech solution,
Yep.
this deep dive hopefully gave you a new appreciation for all the hard work that goes into creating these seamless online experiences.
Absolutely. And a huge shout out to ProductinData.com for making this complex topic so accessible.
Yes, they did an amazing job of summarizing the key insights from Airbnb's tech blog.
So we could all benefit from their expertise without having to wade through all that technical jargon.
Exactly. If you're at all interested in learning more about this topic or just want to explore some other cool tech deep dives,
Definitely check out ProductinData.com. They have a ton of great content.
they really do. And if you enjoyed this episode,
Yeah.
be sure to share it with your friends.
Especially anyone who loves Airbnb or geeking out about how things work.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Airbnb's payment system.
Until next time.
Keep exploring and keep learning.